All right. G'day, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Got the 4 Points. We're up to round two or three or four, depending where you are in the state. Happy Easter. A little bit of footy happening around the state at the moment. Some leagues taking the week off, some leagues playing on Good Friday. Pete, we had fun on Friday. We went and watched Castlemaine play. That was a pretty good Friday outing.
Good fun.
Yeah, it was good, and Castlemaine got up for a win over Golden Square. So we've had a good Easter weekend, and we hope you are too. Hey, we're trying something a little different today. We have a special guest, and we're very excited to welcome Brandon Weatherson to Got the 4 Points. How are you, mate?
Going well. Special, don't know about that, but
Oh,
good to see
yeah.
you for the second time in 15 years. The second time
Yeah.
in 12 months, I think, both of you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a long time between drinks for sure, but yeah, we're certainly keen to dig into a little bit around your footy journey and sort of how things have gone for you in those 15 years since we were sitting in a classroom together and
Me
getting
looking out
get,
the window.
getting through high school, looking out the window, thinking, would I play a back six or would I drop a spare? That's probably where your mind was at. But but I think Rob, it's fair to say, we've got 265 games played from the great man. Um, 491 goals. So I don't know, mate, if the boots are still getting put on, but you've got to get to 500, I reckon. You got nine more. Maybe sneak a few cheapies in the twos, I reckon. 46 times in the best. So I think we've got the absolute pleasure of getting to interview someone, Rob, that lives and breathes local footy, been around a lot of different local footy settings, a lot of different leagues. And I know he's had a really fascinating journey and one that you and I often would say we should get him on to interview him and see what he's got to say as people that love local footy ourselves. So the legend that is the current coach of the Carisbrook Football Club seniors, Brandon Weatherson. So yeah, looking forward to what you've got to give us around your local footy journey, mate.
Well, so what was it, 491 goals? At Dunkeld, actually, there was a day I kicked seven against Karamat, and it got awarded to Hamish Wathen, who was a teammate. So I technically know that I'm only 2 goals away, but
Oh,
no,
okay.
the boots are hung up, so we might get a father-son when I'm about 140 kilos and Fletcher's 15, but we'll see how we go. No interest at the moment.
Oh,
Uh,
very good.
good research, Pete. I like that. Well done. But whether I want to hear a bit in your words, tell us a little bit about your footy journey. Uh, we know a little about your junior footy, but tell everyone else a little bit about your journey from juniors through to seniors, some of the places you've played, and the journey from playing into coaching.
Bro's nice, has he?
Yeah, he's frozen. Uh-oh. Sorry, mate. Very good research from Pete there. But in your own words, keen to hear a little bit about your footy journey. So tell us about your junior footy and through to seniors and how you ended up coaching. And I think you've played in a few different places. So yeah, tell us a bit about your footy journey.
Yeah, footy's been good to me, Rob. I started in the Maryborough under-13s under Tom Noonan, who was the coach, and then transitioned out to Carisbrook with a few of the high school boys that we obviously went to school with. They got me out there and played under-15 and under-17 footy there and had some good success there. And then I think in year 12, I was coaching the under-15s at Carisbrook. It was sort of weird how it happened. Looking for a coach, I was pretty keen to get involved and yeah, I just took the opportunity then. So I think I was 17, 18 coaching 15-year-olds, which was interesting. And then, yeah, had a good stint there. We were pretty successful. My proudest thing about it is that we developed some really good senior footballers out of those under 15 teams that went on to play in those premierships in the seniors for Carisbrook in 17 and 18. So that's been the best part of it. You're right, it's taken me a few different places. I Went over to Glen Thompson Dunkeld for 5 years. They gave me my first opportunity at coaching senior footy, and I was playing still then, and I really enjoyed that time there. And then coached up in Horsham at Taylor's Lake for 3 years. That was during COVID, which was pretty tricky. A lot of challenges up there, but enjoyed my time and still got some good friends up there. And back at Carisbrook, I had a year at Longwood in the Carisbrook District League, actually just as a player, just to enjoy it, and then headed back to Carisbrook the last 3 or 4 years, which has been really good.
Yeah, nice.
I'm interested whether, what was it? You mentioned their coaching quite young. What was it about coaching that really interested you and intrigued you? And actually, because you chat to some people that just go like, would never want to coach a day in their life. And to coach at quite a young age, it was clearly something that was a passion for you. But what was it about that?
I think it probably stemmed from being an average footballer. The great thing about the district league is you can get away with playing 150 games or whatever in the twos and enjoy yourself and have a successful career. But I was never going to go far with footy, but I loved it and I thought I understood it. So the opportunity to hopefully pass on some knowledge to, at that stage it was 14-year-old kids. I think I've coached pretty much every grade. I've coached 15s, 17s, reserves and seniors. So I don't know. I just enjoy leading the group, trying to get the best out of people. Footy's a team sport, and I've been pretty successful with it, but had some good sides along the way, which a lot of people remind me of.
I certainly, sorry, Rob, I certainly remember those 15, under 15, and Rob probably remembers the under 17s Carisbrook teams, and they were certainly fearsome with some of the players you had in there. What was some of the enjoyment you got from playing with some of the likes that we know, and I'm sure you'll talk about or potentially mention, that have gone on to play senior footy and quite at a high level?
Oh, yeah, it's been great. And that's sort of my second, like when I've come back to Carisbrook, seeing those guys. So, coaching the seniors this year, Nick Wright and Jackson Bowen are joint captains. So what an absolute thrill to, it's a 360, isn't it? We were 15, 16, 17-year-old kids playing together, and now we're out the other end and, we're sort of leading the senior team. So, it's been great. Last year in the twos, I played because we were pretty short during the year. We ended up playing in a grand final, and Nick Wright was injured throughout the year and he could play twos. So I don't think we'd played together since 2009. So having a kick with some of those guys, like Jaden Taggart, he's played in I think 6 or 7 premierships at Carisbrook in the twos, and we got to play together and I come back as well. So a real buzz. The best part about coming back to Carisbrook was in 22, seeing Zach Rinaldi, Lewis Rinaldi, Tim Rinaldi, all those guys that we coached in the under 15s playing senior footy now, and it was a real thrill to see them out there.
It certainly sounds amazing coming back to coach with some of your best mates that you used to play with. But on the other hand, what happens, or how does it go if you've got to tell them to pull their finger out? Like, I don't know, if the team needs a lift at 3/4 time and one of those blokes you mentioned's not playing so well, like, how do you go at being able to play bad cop as well as enjoying footy with your mates, which is obviously the best part?
Oh, pretty good. I'm co-coach with Brady Neal this year, so we can play good cop, bad cop. I'm probably more bad cop, as you guys would understand. But I think coaching's evolved from 15 years ago, where, and looking at the way I probably handled things a decade ago towards now, it's completely chalk and cheese. I think an old adage is, everyone should be treated equally and the same. If you do that in senior footy, I just don't think you can get the best out of the 22. Some people need to, be a little bit, you need to be a bit softer with, and some people you can go hard out. And I know, a couple of the mates that you just mentioned there, if it was for the betterment of the team, they'd want me to go hard at them. So no problems at all. Yet it is only round 3 coming up Saturday. So maybe ask that question in 3 months.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah, certainly with one of the things Rob and I have discussed a few times is, as a coach, can you get a sense where the group's at before the game starts? So, that 30, 40 minutes before a team runs out, can you see signs that you go, I don't know what we're going to dish up here today, or is that sometimes maybe read into a little bit too much by both spectators and then media personalities that talk a little bit too much about, oh, they were off. Like, what is your view from that from a coaching perspective?
It's probably changed. I don't know the answer to it. I know round one at Denali this year, we were like in the rooms, was the best feeling ever. And we ran out there and we were really flat. They beat us to the ball for the first 10, 15 minutes. And we sort of had a look at our warm up and how long it went for. And we thought that maybe we were overstimulated. So, and there's been Thursday nights where you train the house down and you have an absolute shocker on Thursday and vice versa. So, yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I think you obviously want to prepare as well as you can. And, yeah, you want to be feeling the goods in the rooms before the game. I think it gives you that extra bit of confidence, but I don't think it's a thing that works 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just saying earlier, like we sometimes watching the Uni Blacks, you look at the warm up or you look at the first 5 minutes and you think, or even just like looking in players' eyes as they walk out, you're like, oh yeah, we're on.
Yeah.
And then yeah, get beaten to the ball first 10, 15 minutes and you sort of think, well, have I completely misread this? What's going on? Of course, there's two teams in the game, but
I think that's the key, Rob. I think the other team could be on just as much as you.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you can take as much into the contest as you like. The other team might be up for it as well. So
yeah,
what we found
yeah,
round one, Denali were early. So Uni
yeah.
Blacks, Angus McKenna, you missing him?
Slightly, yes. Nice little goal sneak for us in previous years, and I do know that he's made the shift out there to Carisbrook. But yeah, look, we're always happy to support our local leagues as well. Although we'd love as much talent coming to the Blacks as we could possibly get at the minute. So
He speaks
Yeah,
very highly of his time at the Blacks, and you know, I didn't get to see him much in 17, 18, 19. He played at Carisbrook. I've seen him a few games, but he's come back a complete different player. And obviously, the development down at the Blacks is the reason for that.
well, we'll certainly take credit for that, won't we, Pod?
yeah, 100%. We'll take complete credit. Yeah, no, it's good to hear he's doing well, and but yeah, we wouldn't mind anything we can get down there at the moment at the Uni main. Mate, how'd you find it changing leagues? I mean, I never played as much footy as you, but I couldn't really imagine actually traveling around the state. And like, did you end up having to move to these other places? How'd you find the travel? How'd you find adjusting to new mates, styles, clubs, all that sort of thing?
Yeah, probably in hindsight, a few silly decisions were made, you know, with travel. So the different leagues, I've remained really in the district league sort of style of it. I like the mystique of it. I like the rabbit holes in the ground and the kangaroo shit on the ground and all that sort of thing. I just think at country level, the people are great, and maybe it's, you know, back to the lack of ability that I had. But yeah, each of the leagues that I've played in and coached in are pretty comparable. I feel the Mindanera League was a lot more contested than the Maryborough Castlemaine League. You had to go win your own footy, and it was a little bit colder down there, and the grounds were a little bit heavier. And then made the move up to the Horsham League, which was Horsham District, and it was quick. It was end to end. Grounds were bigger, drier. Similar standard, I feel, to the District League, but yeah, more outside than inside. And then the Kyabram League, which I only played the 1 year in the Kyabram District, it was hard, like hard bodies, probably a good mixture of in between Mindanera, Maryborough, Castlemaine. But all the people were great, good country folk. The travel, my partner not very happy with. So with Dunkeld, I was travelling to start with, but then about six or seven games in, I ended up moving there. I got a job as a teacher's aide at North Hamilton Primary School. So that was a good opportunity. The first time I'd left Maryborough, sort of first time outside, you know, the Carisbrook footy bubble that I lived in. And yeah, I enjoyed those 5 years. With Taylor's Lake, I travelled 100k up a highway. That's a little bit of friction in the household. And then we travel 45 minutes down to Carisbrook now from Ballarat, which is, yeah, a lot better than travelling up the highway with the kangaroos and all that type of thing up to Horsham. So, yeah, it's been a good journey.
I think it's one thing that always rings in my ears was one of my old football coaches, Len Watson, and Rob, you'll know Lenny Watson, and Weather's nodding as well. And I remember Lenny always telling me that you know, footy could take you around not only the state but the country if you were good enough and passionate enough that footy could take you places. And I think it's great to through local football, it was your first time out of that Maryborough bubble, and that's such an exciting thing to think about when you think about what local footy's been able to do for you.
Yeah, and in conversation with people, I sort of use the example we could be driving through a town and break down, and in Ararat, in Hamilton, in Horsham, in Maryborough, in Seymour, someone would come and help us. We could ring someone, and they'd come and organise a can of petrol or tow us away or whatever. And it's because of the relationships through footy. So one thing I think from a decade ago, I thought footy was bigger than life. Where now I can sit back and understand that there's a lot more things to life than just footy. But the relationships are the most important part for sure.
Mm. And you mentioned there about breaking down and being able to call for help. I could have this completely wrong, so please just tell me I'm an idiot if I do have this completely wrong. But I seem to remember that on your Facebook you would often go hunting for old football grounds that were no longer used. I'm just really interested, like what were some of the gems that you were just in a random town and you just managed to find an old football oval that was no longer played on?
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen the page. There's an abandoned cricket pitches page, which was quite famous out of WA. And Andy Munro, who runs a Facebook page as well, I've got to know him a little bit. He explores old footy grounds and puts videos up. I don't want to say that I was first, but I reckon I was a good decade before them. I don't know where it stemmed from. Just understanding footy cricket clubs' histories and talking to old people. And remember Harold Mason, who was our trainer at Carisbrook, an old fella. He unfortunately passed away quite a while ago now. But he was telling us stories of playing footy at Campbelltown and, even like shooting. I know that's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot. It's only 25, 30 years ago or whatever. But I just found those stories fascinating that some of those places had grounds. And I don't know, I just wanted to join the dots and go see what they look like and take a photo. And probably my favourite one would be the old Illabrook ground. So they stopped playing there in 1998, I think it was, and the last game there ever was the Western Plains Grand Final in '98, and then they just up and left, and nothing ever happened since. And
wow.
I find it really interesting up on Bulldog Hill, I think it's called, and all the sheds are still there. The grass is 10 foot high. The goalposts are leaning everywhere, but just a bit of a fascination. I don't know why. A lot of people don't know why. I'm still got my dad's voice in my ear. Why the hell are you traveling 100 kilometres to go see that shit?
I think that's great.
I'm totally up for that. I'd be up for a road trip around the state doing that. I feel like there's a lot of those kind of in the extremities of the state, like those places where in the northwest or the far east where you've got merged teams and, Wimalang Lascelles and they don't play at Wimalang anymore or whatever it is, all the cells, one at the other. And there's got to be, I know some of those clubs, they kind of share custody of the club between two different grounds, but there's a lot of old facilities out there not being used. And some of them, I think, you find that they still play cricket on them in the summer, even if they don't play footy anymore. But some of them are completely abandoned.
I think I remember my grandfather, who's still alive, he's 88, 89, telling me a story about playing cricket out at Timor, so just out of Maryborough. And, I went out there I think it was in the middle of Musketty's racetrack, and, it's still there, trees everywhere. It was a footy ground until the mid-50s, which Carisbrook would have played at. So, there's so many around Maryborough, Castlemaine that you just wouldn't know about. So there's a good website, Footypedia. I'm not sure if you've seen it, which actually creates a timeline for every club and what league they're in and when they won flags and who they played against. So that's a handy little tool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good research material for a local footy podcast, if anyone knows one.
Yeah, I reckon I know a couple of blokes who'd be good at it.
Yeah. Let us know if you find out who they are. You did touch on COVID earlier. So you were at Longwood at that point, were you? Or were you at Taylor Lake? Yeah, Taylor Lake. Yeah. Tell us about that. How did COVID impact footy, and what's your perspective on those years?
Oh, I try to put them in the back of my mind now. They're pretty ordinary years. So I coached Taylor's Lake in 2019, so the year before COVID, and they hadn't won a game for a couple of years. And we recruited pretty well. We won a couple of games in 2019. We were a lot more competitive. In 2020, we'd recruited well again. I don't think, we might have just been on the cusp of the six to play finals. We might have finished 8th or 9th, who knows? But just, we recruited really well. We'd had the preseason. From memory, we had a preseason camp down at Port Fairy, and you go back to, how's the club feel? We'll feel like we're flying. And then for it to be cut short and, it was pretty heartbreaking for the boys because they put in a lot of hard work, and we'd done a lot of work to get the club back on track, and not to be able to play on a Saturday for all the year was tough. And then from memory, I think 21 was the same. I think, was it a late start to the year? It got cut. It might have got cut during the year, actually.
Yeah, I think it was cut about midway through the year.
Yeah. And we'd won 2 games, I think, and about halfway through the year, and probably had another 3 or 4 that were winnable. So I'll always go to my grave saying that I feel like we're on the improve, from 2 games to maybe in 2020 we would have won 4 and maybe 6 in 21, but there'll never be any proof that we would have done that. So it was tough, having to wear masks in the club rooms and socially distance and only allowed to have 40 at functions or whatever. It was a tough time, and I think country footy's probably still repairing itself after that.
I think that could be true to some extent. I wonder, though, if there's been a rebound in some places. I mean, we're at Castlemaine on Friday, as I said, watched the Bendigo League game there, and I thought the crowd was outstanding. And I guess it's a holiday period. A lot of people maybe up from Melbourne, like myself. But on the other hand, I do wonder if there's perhaps more people going to the local footy in some respects thinking, oh, well, we really missed out and we want to make the most of it. We know it could be taken away at a moment's notice if something like this happens again.
Yeah, well, our crowd against Newstead last weekend was one of the biggest home crowds I've seen. Like, it was, I agree. I think crowds are definitely up. I think blokes like to work on a Saturday now. Like, if you're a tradie, you can make $700-800, risk free on a Saturday. So I don't think it takes away from the crowd. I think the players and club helpers and things like that are the things after COVID that have really been hurt. So, country footy, especially in the places with little population, I think is in real trouble, which is sad. There'll be more and more teams fold and more mergers, I would say. But I think it's just the state that we're in, isn't it?
Yeah. What is your take on that? I know that we've seen and both Rob and I have spoken about a few on our previous episodes, clubs that are merging or folding and going into recess. So what is your take on that? I mean, Maryborough Castlemaine, which is an area where all 3 of us are so familiar with, is probably a great example given how many clubs are in this sort of small cluster of population. Sort of what's your take on that moving forward for local footy?
Yeah, I think if we had the answer to be fixed, I don't know what the answer is to fix local footy. I hear a lot of people blame the AFL, and I can't join the dots. I think the AFL, potentially from a paperwork point of view and a volunteer point of view, could make things easier. I know, to get a day of footy and netball up, it's never been harder. There's so much paperwork and red tape that you've got to work through now. But I don't join the dots in how the AFL are going to get 44 people on the field every day in a footy game and 9 or 10 in a netball court, that type of thing. I don't understand there. I think it's just society. It's population decline in the smaller areas. The farms are bigger, but there's less people working on them, all that type of thing, which I'm sure you've probably discussed. You look at towns like Maryborough, Ararat, Hamilton, Portland, they're all towns that supported 3, 4, 5 footy teams. Like Ararat in the late 90s, they had 5 teams playing out of Ararat, and now there's 2. Yeah. And the Ararat Eagles struggled for years. So, you look at Maryborough now at the moment, there's 1 club, which is a merged club playing out of town. And I just don't think towns of 7,500 to 10,000 are 2 club towns anymore. I think they're probably 1 club towns. But anyway, I might be proven wrong in the future. You never know.
I think that probably tracks with what we're seeing. It's just that real population decline and there's not a lot of growth in some of those regional rural areas, and it is becoming harder to, not only to your point, put 44 people on the park, but have the volunteer support behind that as well, because it's more than just people running around the oval. It's the people taking the gate, it's the people in the canteen, it's your water boys, it's your trainers. I mean, Rob, we probably saw on Friday in the Golden Square Castlemaine game that probably both clubs had a lack of medical trainers. Like
Yeah.
some players going
Yep.
down injured and a lack of anyone that could actually go out to really help them. It was pretty much get into a car and go to hospital. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think you definitely got a point there. And just another one on just your time in local footy. Just another thing that Rob and I have discussed quite a lot in some of our episodes. Salary caps, player points. You've seen all of these things come into the leagues that weren't existing before. Sort of, what's your take on them coming in? How do you think they've shifted and changed? And then, as a coach, how do you go about recruiting and building a list for your club?
Yeah, look, salary cap and points, in my opinion, hasn't worked. I think you'll find in most leagues the clubs that were down the bottom are still down the bottom. The clubs that were on, like you look at the district league, it's been the same 3 or 4 clubs for the last decade. And, Talbot are going to be up there this year, which is good because, I'm a Carisbrook boy, so Talbot, Carisbrook don't really like each other. But it is good to see a proud club like Talbot get back up the ladder and compete again. I think the salary cap's rubbish personally. I think it's there to help clubs from shooting themselves in the foot. Like the salary cap in the district league, $77,500, and you could drive 60 kilometres to a major league and it's nearly double that. So it's very hard for those smaller towns to compete now. And for me, a base payment back in the day was $20. Now it's $50, edging up to $100. It all adds up, and as you said, you got to get that through a raffle or on the gate or things like that. So to me, the salary cap hasn't worked, and I think we're all smart enough, and I know a lot's happened in the media lately of clubs that have blatantly break it, and they get caught after winning the flag, and that's what irks me a little bit. It happens 6 months after they've won the flag, and there's 11 other clubs that have busted their guts and followed the rules. It doesn't sit well with me. The point system's the way forward, I feel. But there's too many grey areas in it. Like, clubs can get more points. You can have players reduce points if they move to the area. Or I think if the point systems are working, it just has to be blanket. It is what it is, personally. Yep. I don't think there can be so many moving parts. So there's teams in our league that are on 45. And then, I think Natty might be on 39 or 40. And it feels to me that Natty are getting punished for being a great club. And it just doesn't, to me, it doesn't promote, being a good club. I don't think. But
no, that's really interesting perspective.
Like before, if there was an answer, country footy would be fixed. So I don't think they've found the mix yet.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about the idea of whether you could introduce relegation promotion, because this is something that we're used to in the VAFA in Melbourne, and also in some of the other suburban leagues as well. Makes a little bit more sense in some ways in communities that are closer geographically than they often are in the country. And I don't know necessarily how you go about creating a tiered structure in some parts of the state where teams are so far apart. But hypothetically, like in the Bendigo, Ballarat, Maryborough area, could you ever see that kind of thing working where there might be promotion from the Central Highlands and the Maryborough Castlemaine League up to the Bendigo Ballarat League and the bottom teams come down?
It's a great question. I haven't thought about it. Possibly. I do, if Carisbrook gets demoted, is that the word? Relegated to the second comp. Like, do you lose a lot of your better kids and a lot of your better players because they want to go elsewhere and play in the higher comp, and then that leaves the club, in a bit of a difficult position? I don't know. I remember when we were in year 12, when the Lexington Plains League folded, there was talk about a Goldfields Super League. So it was practically the Lexington Plains, Maryborough, Castlemaine merging, and then there was a few. I think Central Highlands might have even been a part of the proposal, and it was going to be a tiered system. I think it was going to be more geographical location, though. So they definitely looked at it 15 years ago. I look at the Loddon Valley League and I wonder, how long can little towns keep going? With the extra costs and the extra volunteer workload and all that type of thing. I'm not sure. I don't know. I think there's too many. Unfortunately, I think there's too many clubs for people interested in playing footy, and that hurts me to say because I love going out to those smaller clubs and I wish them all the best, but I don't think there's enough to go around.
Yeah. I think you've kind of hit on you just said it that you don't like to say it. And I think Pete and I, we've probably been the same. We haven't really hit the nail on that, hit that nail on the head just yet because we kind of want to avoid saying that there aren't enough people that want to play footy. We have touched a couple of times on places where there are new clubs. So Gisborne's introduced a new team, for example. There are growth areas. There are some growth areas in the western suburbs of Melbourne. Where Strathfield Say in the Bendigo League are an example of a new suburban area that produced actually a very successful club. So there are some areas, but I agree with you that they're not really in the small towns anymore. They're in the suburban areas around Melbourne or around the bigger rural cities.
I think the thing for me, Rob, as well is I think one of the ones I look to that's come back out of recess to play is Corowa Rutherglen recently, and they had a good win just gone. They're now 1-1, and I mean to Corowa being 1-1 is incredible, really. When they've gone years past being 0-16, but I think for them, some of the things I've read around them is it's not actually about winning games of football. Like that's a flow-on effect, but it's actually about giving their town something to be able to do and to bring that community together. I think that's what they lacked. So I think they've been a lot smarter from what I've read about creating stability. That's what it's about. It's not about creating a premiership team. It's about creating a stable football club that can exist for years to come. And I think similar Kyneton were probably another one. And that saw Kyneton look at the Bendigo League and go, you know what? It's great playing in a major league, but it's actually no good for our stability. So we're actually going to move to the Riddle League where, sure, to Brandon's point, we might lose some players that want to play major league football, but we're going to create some stability that allows us to exist for years to come. But I think the problem we've still got is even within that creating stability, there are just unfortunately some small clubs in small population areas that just will continue to struggle just off the lack of people that they've got in town. And similar to both of you, like I don't want to see it. I'd love to see these little clubs thrive and continue on, but sometimes, that's just reality, isn't it?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
One of the things. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you go, Pete. You go.
I was just gonna. You've coached a lot of different teams. What are some of the principles you have when it comes to coaching that you're like your non-negotiables as a coach that you want to see your players deliver week in, week out? Do you have, whether it's a brand of football or a type of football that you really like to see from your players?
Yeah, we have an anchor chart, which we may have stolen off a club a couple of years ago, but it's just a set of principles that if the wheels are a little bit wobbly, we can revert back to. So it's a simple A4 document, and we have backs, mids, forwards, club, sort of those 4 points where, as I said, if the wheels are a bit wobbly, we go back to this. So in terms of brand of footy, I've always liked to play pretty exciting footy, move the footy on angles, chip it around, but also do that quickly to try and be aggressive. I don't really like the slow play footy, but there's a time and a place for it. So, pretty attacking footy is our principle. Sorry, the dog's just come back in.
You're good.
That answers your question. Hopefully. Cut that
out.
We like dogs with the footy. That's part of the fun of local footy, right? Having all the pets involved.
Yeah. There's
I had my dog down
around the rec reserves.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, sometimes on the oval.
Sometimes during the game.
Old mate down at Brighton had his dog on the oval pretty recently. That was pretty exciting.
Go
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
You're good,
you're
mate.
Right. No, you're all good. So some of the best players. You did mention some of your mates at Carisbrook that you've seen and played with for many, many years, but maybe some of the other clubs or some of the people you haven't mentioned at Carisbrook, who are some of the best players you've played with and perhaps against in some of those other teams?
Was thinking about this question earlier, actually. Remember Matt Peake at Campbell's Creek?
Yep.
He was I reckon he's probably one of the top three district league players I've seen. I think he
Mm,
played in Castleman's premiership in the late '90s.
He did. Yeah.
And
yeah,
he went out.
2000.
Yeah. He went out and coached Campbell's Creek for I feel like it was only a year, maybe two, and they made finals. And he was an unbelievable player out at Creek. And they should have beaten us out there one day, but we scored a late goal to avoid that. Matt Bilton at Brook is probably when he was going a decade ago. I'm not sure I've seen a better player in the district league. So yeah, he was good to watch. Daniel Parkin from Navarre, he was an absolute superstar. So they're three that come to mind. I used to love watching Rambo run and jump at contests back in the day.
Yeah,
There's been some good players.
Yeah. I,
yeah,
I certainly can, as someone that watched Matt Peake as a young boy growing up for Castlemaine, like he was mighty good at Castlemaine. So I think, yeah, he was a hell of a player. But I think it's one of those things, isn't it? When I saw the question on the run sheet, I started to think about, who I've seen, and you just start to think that you're actually really privileged with some of the people that you've seen play local football, and
yeah,
just some incredible players that it just reminds you how good local footy is. Because a lot of the players you think of as well, you think, well, they probably weren't quite good enough to get to that, AFL level, but how they can play the game. So those are three cracking names that you've provided us with there.
I think when Denali had their crack in the 2009, like James McNamee,
Mm,
I'm
yeah,
thinking of names after discussing it. Like James McNamee was a seriously impressive footballer, and
yeah.
Shannon Motlop when he played at Denali, and
mm.
yeah, no, you're right, Pete. We've been lucky in the league to, see some of those players. Horsham District, there was a guy, Nick Peakin. He coached Harrow Balmoral. He played Sample footy. He was a star, but he had Michael Close, who played for Brisbane.
Yep,
His brother Simon Close, who played VFL at Geelong.
yep.
They were pretty stacked. But to go to Harrow or Balmoral and play against those guys, there was just 3, 4, 5 superstars of country footy in the one team. So,
No wonder they haven't lost for 3 years or something.
yeah. Well, I think Nick's retired. That's what I've heard. So
Right.
they might have come back to the pack a little bit, but they'll still be pretty hard to beat, I reckon.
No, they haven't come
Mm.
back to the pack. They haven't been beaten for 3 years or something.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think their wins this year have been by 250 points like they
Right.
used to.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think Quanny up there might be the team to beat. Narrabri with
Okay.
10
Okay.
points. So
Hmm.
Yep.
see how that goes.
Yeah. You still keep an eye on those leagues?
Yeah, definitely, mate. The Play HQ app has got about 25 saved leagues
Yeah.
in the search bar. So
Yeah.
um, talk to a couple of mates about it. Like footy on the Saturday is great. It's that hour or two after footy, drinking a couple of beers with your mates, which is great. And then it's hopping on the Play HQ and keeping an eye on all the other guys that you've met or leagues that you've
Yeah.
played in and seeing how they went and discussing scores. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's all part of it.
I was
No, we're 100% the same. We can relate to that. For us,
yeah.
it's usually go and get a beer after the game, and then whatever either the drive back through the eastern suburbs,
Yeah.
or sitting at the Clyde with a beer, with a pint of Melbourne. That's kind of the standard routine on Play HQ. So can
There it
definitely
is.
relate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We went up to the King Valley on Saturday and we watched King Valley play Millwall in the
Yes.
Wow.
Queens and King League.
Yeah.
Never watched a game of footy up there, but it was a cracking setup up at Whitfield, which is where King Valley play, and
Yep.
just going somewhere different, experiencing new places, new league. Caught up with a mate up there, so yeah, it was good. Still like doing that type of thing on the bye.
Mm.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah.
I
That's
must
awesome.
admit, Rob, I do miss the old scoring system from the VAFA and all other leagues, the Sporting Pulse, because nothing beat the last game of the year especially from a VAFA perspective when it was all about promote or relegation more so than promotion. But nothing beat that absolutely collapsing last round of the year. You'd get a blank screen that you wouldn't go anywhere, and everyone was just clamoring for results. I always
madly swiping with their thumb.
Yeah, overload.
Find out who'd been. Yeah, absolutely.
I
Yeah,
reckon it's probably my favourite part of a Saturday. I shouldn't say that, should I? No, the game's my favourite part.
there we go. There we go. He's back
yeah,
on track.
yeah, going back 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, about six
Yeah.
beers in, having a look at the scores around the state.
Yeah.
And then showing your mate who's half cut with you, and they don't care about the score.
Yeah.
Show them
They pretend they're interested usually.
Yeah, that's right. That's
No,
right.
sometimes. Let's talk a little bit around Maryborough Castlemaine Footy League this year. You've spoken a little bit around it already. Coaching Carisbrook, sort of. How do you think the team's looking for this year? I know it's still early days, but also how do you think the Maryborough League's shaping up in general across the board?
If you could not mention the game that you had last Saturday, that'd be good though. Against Newstead.
No, Newstead were good. I'm coming back. This year I feel like it's probably more even than it's been for a while. Natty and Harcourt are going to be really tough sides to beat. They've both picked up really well from last year, and they were probably the best two sides last year. Harcourt got hurt by a bit of injury late. So for me, they're going to be pretty tough to beat. Talbot have recruited really well out of the Essendon District League, and they've got a coach who coached Tullamarine, and they've started really well. So they're going to definitely be around the mark. But Newstead, Denali, I've been really impressed. The first two rounds, seeing them, they were really competitive. We've all seen the days where 6th, 7th, and 8th in the district league would make finals and then get beaten by 100 points in the first final. It was sort of pointless them making it.
Yeah.
I feel like the top 8, 9, 10, are really competitive. I think Giants kicked 6 goals, 20 against Navarre on the weekend. Probably should have won the game. And the week before, Newstead have only beaten Navarre by 3 goals. So I feel like it's pretty tight. In terms of us, bit of a recalibration for us, I feel. We finished 6th last year. It was sort of the end of an era after playing in, I think, 9 of the last 10 senior grand finals. We got hurt by a lot of injuries last year as well, but we're probably off the boil a bit. So this year, we'll put a lot of time into kids. We'll put a lot of time into the 18 to 24-year-olds that we've got. And then we've got a sprinkling of older blokes like Nick and Jacko and Adam Hurst and guys like that are still playing. So, I feel like the long-term future of the club's really good. My aim is to set us up so that we can try and make grand finals again, try and win premierships again. And whether that's this year, next year, 2 years, 3 years' time, I don't know. But I feel like we're on the right track. As I said before, great crowd, first home game, good buzz. The twos are going well, good numbers in the juniors, netball's going well. So I feel like the club's in a good spot. Back to your point, Pete, you say about clubs, it's not about winning games. For Brook, it's definitely a part of it. But getting back to the old culture and getting people through the gate and finding our feet again, I think this year is what we're doing.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. Do you have women's footy at Carisbrook?
Yeah. So senior women's at the moment. Unfortunately, we don't have a junior side this year. We have had junior sides in the past. It's been a little bit tougher this year than it has in previous years, but we've still got a senior women's team, which is good. They play on a Sunday, and I think they've got pretty good numbers.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, definitely. I think women's footy. I don't know. It's getting tougher again. I think for the first few years it was a good buzz around it, and the numbers were really good. I feel like it's a new challenge has presented itself. I don't know what that challenge is, but I do know that there's less teams and less numbers in the country areas playing now. So it's going to be an interesting watch.
Yeah, maybe a bit of a honeymoon period over you think, and back to maybe the level that it's going to be at for the next few years.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day. They thought a lot of girls and women have ticked it off their bucket list, and they've done it, and then they've gone away and either continue with netball or do their work on a Saturday or whatever else they do. I hope to see it grow again. I think it's got a really good spot within the footy netball club. I don't know. I'd like to see it played on the Saturday during the day, but obviously there's not going to be 13 district league clubs get a women's team up, so
Yeah.
that makes it hard. But yeah,
I
I don't
know.
think Sunday makes it hard.
I know on Friday, Rob, you had to leave after the senior game, but I stuck around and watched the senior women's for Castlemaine play Golden Square in the night game on Good Friday, and it's just incredible. Like I probably haven't watched a lot of women's games in over the last few years, but every time I do just sit down and watch one, I just go, this level is just getting better and better every single time I watch it. I wanted to send some of the Golden Square men out to show them how well they were lowering their eyes inside 50. Like, it is some of the best lowering of the eyes inside forward 50 kicking I have seen from the Castlemaine team. I was like, that was just incredible. So it is really good to see, but yeah, I think that's probably a challenge, isn't it? I think more of them would love access to that Saturday, and that's certainly there's been some mechanisms put in with that fair access policy to try and give women more access to local footy the way we know it, which is that Tuesday, Thursday training and Saturday games. But there's still a way to go on that.
Yeah.
Well, I think
mate, we're going to jump into some quicker questions. We just got a couple more for you. So, look, Pete and I go to a lot of VAFA local footy, and depending on the quality of the Blacks play on a particular day, we might actually find ourselves talking more about the canteen. So we want to know, do you have any favourite canteens? You've been to plenty of local footy grounds in your time. And we want to know who takes the cake or the hot dog or the pie, so to speak.
Geez, there'll be some people having fun with this question that would think that I frequent it. I last Saturday I had quite a few beers, and I woke up very, very rusty on the Sunday, and I worked out it was because I hadn't eaten on Saturday at all. So contrary to a lot of people's belief, I don't really frequent the canteen a lot. Who's got the best canteen? That's a good question. If you've got a good chicken burger, I reckon you're up there. I rate our canteen at Carisbrook. Tadioon actually had a reasonable canteen. They had $6 hot dogs about 5 years ago, but they're the big ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, off the top of my head, yeah, chicken burgers and hot chips. If you ace them, you've got a good canteen.
I love it.
There's not that many chicken burgers in the VAFA, Pete.
No, there is an embarrassing lack of chicken burgers in the VAFA. I would say, Rob, off the top of my head, I know Alstonwick have done one. I know Old Zabs were actually doing chicken burgers when they were playing at the college. I don't know if they do it at Toorak Park, though. They could probably just order their chicken in. But bloody anyway. Careful. What about best local footy ovals? So and then I suppose best local footy oval. I'll just hit you with that, but then I might have a follow-up question.
Alexandra Park in Ararat was very good. Beautiful ground in Ararat. That was good. I loved playing at Glen Thompson. Probably not the best ground, but at the end of the year they get a lot of finals, so it would be like carpet. I coached the 16s premiership there, and we got to play at home. So Glen Thompson feels pretty special. Clubs are lower than the ground. You run up sort of a couple of steps to get on the ground, and then beautiful.
Okay.
Probably a couple of minutes.
And I suppose from that you've picked Glen Thompson, but is there something like, I know Rob and I were discussing when we were talking best local footy oval, and my mind immediately went to just some nice ovals. Then I started thinking about the amenities attached. So what were the club rooms like? Like, is there something for you with a local footy oval that you go, if they've got a really nice change room, you're like, yep, I'm happy? Or what's your, the scenery around the ground? What is it you go to for what makes a good local footy oval?
The more in the middle of nowhere it is, I feel.
Okay.
So Taddy was a good ground. I can't believe I left Princess Park out. There's nothing better than in August, September playing at
Gorgeous.
the park. And I know that'll ruffle some Castlemaine people up that want finals at Camp Reserve, but I reckon the park's up there. Yeah, the more in the middle, in the Mindanera League, like there's no town SMW Rovers. There's no town at Tadioon, but oases of grounds are in the middle of nowhere. So, yeah, to me, probably location, size of the scoreboard. It's pretty important these days. Don't know. So Denolia winning that race in the District League.
Okay.
Their scoreboard's huge, and we've only got a tiny one at Brook. But yeah,
Because the eyesight's going, or what?
Oh, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Small town down near Warrnambool, Carisbrook. They play in the Mineira League. Their rooms, it's like going back in time. But I don't know. I always enjoyed playing there.
Yeah.
I think they were pretty ordinary. That helped.
Well, we were going to talk about Carisbrook. They had a win on the weekend. They beat Moyston Wallora, and it was I've forgotten the length of time on the
41 games, I think it was.
41 game losing streak has been snapped.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's good to see. They're good people down there. Just lack a bit of success.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any pet peeves about local footy? If there's something you could change, something you could do differently? I know we've touched on some things, but like maybe some little things.
Yeah, 3 umpires. I feel like it's overkill. I reckon 2.
Yeah.
Feel like the District League, 3 umpires is too much. And it goes, your club's invoice for 3 umpires, you've got to raise more money, all that type of thing.
Yeah.
So I think 2 is more than enough, personally.
Yeah.
You like that one? Agree?
Yeah.
And I feel like they call over each other a lot. That won't get me suspended, will it?
No, you'll be fine. Trust me. I had a crack at the Northern Footy League a couple episodes ago, and we haven't heard Bo Peep from that. So,
really?
Yeah. So, what's one rule change you'd like to make? If we put you in charge of the rules, what's one rule change you'd like to make?
I like the last touch out of bounds. Yeah, and I think it makes sense in country footy. And we go back to the volunteers thing.
Yep.
I feel like it's a matter of time before there's no boundary umpires available. So, I don't mind the last touch rule. That's just one that I'd bring in. Maybe not at the higher leagues because you don't want to lose the art of the boundary throw in. But, yeah.
I've thought a bit about this. My thought is that it's difficult in the 50. I reckon it's difficult if you're creating a new scoring opportunity. I've often wondered whether it could be a ball up. The field umpire calls a ball up inside the 50.
Well, in women's footy, is it last touch in between the arcs?
It is. Correct.
Yeah, that's the same. That's basically what I'm thinking then.
Yeah.
But you still need somebody to run the boundary, don't you, in that scenario?
Yeah, it's a good call.
Because it's such a big boundary, you still got to know when it's out.
Ball technology.
I remember running the whole ground at Campbell's Creek once. There's no second boundary umpire. So it's doable.
Yeah, we've done that at various VAFA grounds a bit, Pete, haven't we?
A couple of times you and I have filled the role of boundary umpire at the Blacks, but
I feel like the stand rule at country footy level is really confusing. I was thinking about this the other day. Yeah. I was thinking about this the other day. We don't do any work like as a footy club. Should we be coming 5 metres off the mark, or should we be standing on the mark? We don't even touch on that. So trying to gain little advantages like that, tough for the umpires to police.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. I've definitely thought that. I know we don't play the stand rule in the VAFA. I've always thought it just adds another element that a local umpire has to put into the repertoire, when I just want them to be able to call the obvious ones, get the holding the ball somewhat consistent, and then I'll be a happy man. But we're putting sort of extra, requirements on them being able to do the call and for stands. So
that was the biggest thing in the reserve. So it doesn't get called all year because you got clubbies, and then come finals you got league umpires, and they implement the stand rule. So there were 50s left, right, and centre in the local league reserves. And you have the chat. We don't play it during the year. Why do we play it now? Too bad.
Yeah, I hate that. So. Yeah. Last one from us, mate. No worries. Any superstitions? Do you have any superstitions pre-game, or did you as a player and you're not anymore?
Well, I used to put my left sock on before my right, but that's as I'm pretty nervous before a game. I'm pretty nervous on a Friday night. I do a lot
Yeah.
of thinking when I should be sleeping. But no, boring answer, not really. I've gone through later in my footy career was having a Red Bull every now and then. Don't think that's good for my heart. And I'm not convinced it worked either. But yeah,
There
like
goes the Red Bull sponsorship.
oh, sorry guys.
No.
Yeah. Never used to eat breakfast, but I'm probably not getting much better at it either.
Mm.
No real superstitions.
Well, Weatho, from us, thank you for jumping on and having a chat. It's been great to get a little more insight into your journey into football, and it's one that's continuing on with your non-playing role as coach. But I mean, what did you say? You're 2 goals away. I'm sure we could.
Well,
Sure,
nine.
we could.
Nine,
Well,
actually.
technically 9, but that's
Mm.
because but we won't mention why. But yeah, we'll try and see if we can get you to 500 at some stage. But I think we've really appreciated the chat, and as just another fellow person that loves local footy, we just love hearing about what it means for you and what it's done for you, and we definitely love that you've taken the time to jump on with us here. And who knows, we might have to bring you back for a part 2 later on in the year and see how the Brook are faring in the Maryborough League and get a little bit of an update of how the Maryborough League is tracking. But yeah, we really appreciate everything you've given for us here today.
No, thanks for having me. Thanks for asking me, and keep up the good work. It's always respected you guys, and have kept tabs on where you're at, but we haven't caught up other than the City Oval last year or the year before. But no, keep up the good work. It's good to see it. I'll definitely be watching. I'll be a watcher.
Thanks,
First
mate.
time caller.
Well, if you're happy to stick on as well, we might just do the last 5 minutes, Rob, going through our paddock to premiership. So this though is where we've picked 3 teams each at the start of the year that we want to follow throughout the year. One we picked with our head that we think will do quite well. One we picked with our heart that we want to do quite well. And then we picked a wild card. So, Rob, I might kick us off. My pick with the head, Castlemaine. We mentioned it. We were there for Good Friday. They beat Golden Square by 50 points at the Camp Reserve. Unfortunately, whilst we were there late in that last quarter, Bailey Henderson dislocated his shoulder. He's a very crucial player for Castlemaine, former VFL listed. And Rob, we've developed, or at least I have developed, a cult hero. Liam Wilkinson is the most honest footballer I have seen in my time. That guy, all the simple things, he got a little bit fancy late, I will admit, but all of the simple things he did, and he did them to perfection. He did not lose a one-on-one all day. He was incredible. I love him. Can we get him at the Blacks?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a man crush developing there. He did play well. Yeah, Bailey Henderson dislocating his shoulder. You never want to hurt yourself, but especially not when you're 40 points up in the last quarter. That's rough. Um, yeah, look, do you want me to run through mine? I'll give you Pyramid Hill. Look, I'm
Yep.
just going to give it to you straight up. None of my paddock to premiership picks had a win. They all had massive losses. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to run through my list and then we'll come back for some
All
good
right.
news with you,
All
Pete.
right.
So I picked Pyramid Hill as my pick with the head. I thought they were looking pretty good, but they went down to Morong 16-13, 109 to 10-7, 67. So no good for the Bulldogs. They've got Mediamo this weekend. My pick with the heart, I went with Fitzroy and the Vaffa, whether they got relegated from A grade back to B grade after their first ever A grade season last year. So this is the old Fitzroy from AFL years merged with the Fitzroy Reds or the University Reds from decades ago. Um, Pete and I both thought they might do pretty well this year, coming down from A grade, but they've had 2 heavy defeats. No good for the Royals. They went down by, what's that, 60, 70 points to
Caulfield.
Caulfield. Caulfield a couple of years out of A grade. Yeah, not good for
Yes.
Fitzroy. Not looking good for the Royals. My pick with the heart was Karingal. had a bit of a hard luck story in the Mornington Peninsula League last year, coached by Nathan Burke. Unfortunately, 169-point loss to Frankston Bombers. So, yeah, ouch.
Trouble.
Yeah, Karingal conceded 202 points in that game. So, bit of work for Berkey there
Yeah.
down in the Mornington Peninsula, Div 2.
Just a little bit of work there, Rob. It
Yeah,
seems like some of your teams maybe a little bit too much time in the paddock and
yeah.
not enough time trying to get to that premiership. But
Mm,
we'll finish off with my last couple. So with the Heart, as we've discussed on every episode that we've done it, the old North Albury Hoppers won my heart last season. They had a 15-point win on Good Friday against the Wodonga Bulldogs. Ben Rigoni, who played VFL for Coburg in 2024, was named in the best. So they go to 1-1 after a loss to the Wang Rovers, who of course won the premiership in the Ovens and Murray the year before. So I think the Albury Hoppers are looking okay. And then my wild card, which was just picked on the basis that I love the name, Tooleybuck Manangatang, they had a 15-point win against Kerrang. So that puts them 1-1 as well. They had a big loss, as we remember, round one, Rob. But Tooleybuck managed to get a win in round two against Kerrang, who have been quite a powerhouse in that league the last few seasons. So whether that means Kerrang's dropped a little bit or maybe Tooleybuck managed to get the season off on the right foot in round two. So, yeah, I suppose we'll just have to wait and see how the rest of the season carries on for our paddock to premiership teams. Rob, Weather, is there any teams that you're looking at from, you said you're on Play HQ a lot. Is there any, what's your go-to? What's your first team you look at in Play HQ on a Saturday evening?
I go back to Longwood. I always look at their scores in the Kyabram League. So I only had the 1 year there, but I was fortunate enough to play with Cam Mooney in the Carlton draft, which was good. But we lost every game by 200, 250 points. So they've got a fellow who played with Strath, Jordan Formosa. I don't know if you know the Formosa boys. He's coaching Longwood and he's got them on track. They're winning games of footy pretty consistently now. So I keep tabs on them.
Perfect. That's a good
awesome.
one. So we'll have to keep that in mind for future episodes. But yeah, once
Well, I
again,
might have to swap one of my picks for Longwood. The way I'm going.
the way you're going, you'll be spending a lot of time in the paddock, I think, and the way you're
Yeah.
going. But yeah, once again, Weather, thanks for jumping on. That's been got the 4 points for this episode. A little bit different with the interview. So let us know how you felt it went, and we'll hopefully look to do more in the future. We've got, of course, our YouTube. We'd love people to watch and subscribe. If you prefer to listen because you don't want to look at our ugly mugs, which we can understand, we do have our Spotify, got the 4 points as well, which you can listen to us. And of course, we've got our Instagram, and I know Rob, you were putting up some pretty awesome photos of the couches on the trailers at the Castlemaine Golden Square game. So get on, got the 4 points for Instagram as well. But we'll see you at our next episode, and go the Brook and go the Blacks, and let's get some wins on the board.
Thanks, guys.
Sounds good.